This is not a one-off thing. We're starting, as I mentioned before, we are in a great, strong partnership with the Dubai Chamber, with the F&B group. So we're going to work with them in order to accommodate you. In the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to see business. We want to see you guys doing business and our companies are doing business. And this is what we want to do. We want to create those kind of stuff. The food import potential is more than $7 billion a year in Israel. It's growing. As you can see with the trend, there's going to be much more population. The economy is going to do much better. And in general, I think that there's a huge potential to export much more food and products and goods from the UAE, whether it's packaging, whether it's food, beverages, whatever it is, from the UAE to Israel. So now the next thing we're going to do is to help as well. And some people asked a little bit if we can help them with the importers and stuff like that. Later on, we will send an email with all the presentation, with all the contact details, with the LinkedIn profile, so you can get in touch with everything. And then you can also get to the F&B group on the Dubai Chamber and get our contact details and reach out directly. So let's start with some questions. I'm gonna hand it over to you, Robert. You saw a little bit of the questions that were there. You want to address one of them specifically?
Ziva, before I just wanted to ask just a first question from my side. How long does a company practically have to take to actually enter the Israeli market from your previous experience? The time frame, the effort required, and what's the time frame required? I'm sure this is a question in the mind of all the manufacturers here.
I can answer it from my angle. From my experience in the private brand, it takes about 6 to 9 months.
So is this all going into regulation approvals, or is it going into
most of it is regulation, is the licensing of the product with the Ministry of Health. That's it. I mean, the majority of the time is the licensing.
So I can add on that about the time frame. It really depends on your product, if it's regular product or sensitive product. First of all, if it's really a regular sensitive or non-sensitive product, it's easier. And it depends really on your readiness as a company, as a producer. What I mean by that is if you have the documentation required for submission. So if you have the quality and food safety certificates, if you have the specifications that are mature enough, so-called, and you know what to do. So yeah, as Colin said, it takes time. You need to translate the labels. There is a ping pong for specifications issues, contaminants, stuff like that. But once it's submitted, as I said, regular foods are online, and it's a very quick process. Nobody really looks through I'm talking from the Ministry of Health, doesn't look into the documentation at this stage. The importers do, Koreans guys will, we will, but the regulator won't. Frozen, chilled, other sensitive foods, much more complicated. As you know, they look into it, they might have questions, requirements, stuff like that. So it will take more time. So yes, there is a few months of that.
We have a similar system here, so I think we do relate to it. But the time frame is something that was of interest to everybody to know.
It also depends on how you work to make the factory kosher, right? Because sometimes you need to change some of the ingredients, to source new kosher materials for production. So it kind of depends on that. But the kosher organizations can help link you with sourcing of kosher ingredients. So that could make it shorter.
There's a question from Disha saying to Corinne, what does the retail environment look like for someone who wants to display their self-owned brand in supermarket? What is the listing fees? Are there any rebates? If so, at what percent? Maybe you can go into those details.
Yes, I think it's too specific for this forum, and there's also a food law in the country for large retailers. We don't take any commissions to place products in the assortment. But then again, to launch your own brand, first of all, it needs to be in Hebrew. It needs to have a unique labeling, and it needs to overgo. We have a special, committee that decides which products to go into the chain's lineup.
Okay, thank you, Corinne. I'm just gonna say, for those of you who are asking about specific products in terms of VAT or custom duties, so the chamber is connected to the custom data. So if you will send us AGIS codes, again, as part of the collaboration with the Dubai Chamber and FNG Group, if you send us AGIS codes, we can tell you data of where this product is being imported, from where, which quantities, and what's the customs. Robert, do you want to take a few regulations? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I looked at your questions. Thank you for all of you for asking. So first of all, Raji, you asked about labeling. I think you had two questions. So yeah, the red stickers of show should be in Hebrew. That's obvious, and there are quite a few labeling demands. I didn't go through it, but we have a special standard for free pre-packed foods. We have our specific standards for different categories, and we have our Ministry of Health regulations for labeling. So it's quite a complex issue. For Nassif and Barat, which asked about, is it possible to have a sticker and not have the whole package in Hebrew? Yes, it is. It is possible. You can do that. There are some regulations there, but you can do that. It obviously saves money, saves time. By the way, some of the work can be done here in Israel. The registered importers can do that for you. You can do that in UAE, both acceptable. Nassif, regarding the organic certificate, yes, you need to have an organic certificate. We have in the Ministry of Health a branch that deals with organic foods. They have some procedures there, and they do recognize some international certificates. So we can look specifically if you want afterwards. Alia, about your question, standards, yes, you can buy them. They're not very expensive. You can buy them online from the Standards Institution of Israel, but again in Hebrew. Only some of them would be in English, so you need to translate. And going to Aridam's question about translation, yes, we can translate that for you. There are a lot of other regulations, Alia, that are free. So most of the regulation is free online. Again, sorry for that, in the name of the nation, but they're in Hebrew again. So only small part of it would be in Hebrew. You can address the Ministry of Health website. You'll see some information in English there, but not even nearly all the regulations you need to know. Again, Alia, about legalizing your certificates and documentation. If it's a translation, and obviously it should be if you have it in Arabic, but if it's in English or if it's translated to Hebrew, it should be signed by a notary. So yes, there is an issue there. Barat, I think that, first of all, your question about the snacks, potato snacks, yes, they're regular foods, as long as it's not chilled and not anything else, just regular, potato chips, snacks. It's regular food, so you're easier there. The meaning of the green label that I talked about, well, it's an issue. It's new in Israel, so there are no market research yet how much attention the market gives, by the way, to the red symbols and to the green symbols. So if guys here buy, some snacks or some cakes or some, savory products, pastries, nobody expect them to be like, the best for your diet, So if it's red label, you just buy them because you want to indulge yourself in something tasty. So I'm not sure that, there is a decline and then it went up again. We looked into the Chilean market, by the way, and also there was a decline when the regulation came into force there, and then things came up. I think that carbonated or sugared carbonated drinks still down, but that's a trend anyway. Corinne talked about trends, so yes, the health, so to speak, alternatives and the proteins and other stuff like that, enriched foods.
Yankee, a few questions to you, just really quickly. So first of all, is rice require kashrut? And that is one question. Someone is asking if which level of kosher to be certificate to for edible oils and vegetables? Ghee? I think I respect. Not sure. And can you elaborate on kosher equipment, particularly not sharing kosher and non-kosher production? So rice, what level of kosher to be certified edible oil and vegetable, and if about the koshering equipment, particularly not sharing kosher and non-kosher production.
Okay, so again, as I said, the regulation in Israel is that if you write the word kosher on the product, it must be approved by the Chief Rabbinate of Israel. It must be kosher by a kosher organization that is approved by the Chief Rabbinate of Israel. So even though rice is a very simple product to kosherize, yet if it's going to be declared as kosher, it has to have kosher certification. Regarding oils, if we're talking about vegetable oils, in nature, vegetables are kosher. And the oil, in the oil industry, there are some sensitive issues for kosher. First of all, the enzymes. Many times in the oil industry, there are enzymes being used. Not all of the enzymes are kosher. So we have to make sure that the enzymes are kosher. Second of all, many times there is a stabilizer, a citric acid that is non-kosher for Passover. So if we're talking about specifically the week of Passover, oils are a little bit more problematic. And the biggest problem with oil is that if we are using the same machinery to refine kosher oils with non-kosher oils. And now it's very important to talk about the next question that you asked about ghee. Ghee is oil made out of butter. Okay, so ghee can be kosher, but the regulations in Israel are the Chief Rabbinate of Israel, who basically makes the regulations of kosher, are quite hard on dairy products, even though in between the dairy products, butter is one of the easier items, but still, if we're talking about ghee is a little bit more problematic to make kosher. And if the refinery is refining in the same equipment vegetable oil and ghee, then the vegetable oil will also be problematic for kosher. So then I go back to the equipment, the question of the equipment. We cannot stop a factory from using their own equipment to produce whatever they want. But if they want to produce a kosher item on the non-kosher equipment, then we have to clean the equipment in a way that is applied by the Jewish law. Most of the time, it means that it will be sterilized in very hot water. And equipment that have a problem with high temperatures or water can face quite big problems with the kosherizing way, how basically we kosher equipment between non-kosher and kosher items.
All right. Because we have a lot of questions, and I'm not sure how much we can answer everything, but we'll get there. I have a few questions. I want to circle back to Corinne, and then go back another Robert and another Yankee. So first of all, there's a few questions about the market here. First of all, they're asking about what is the minimum shelf life requirement to be considered at the time of
so it really depends on the product. As I said, we're present in all the product groups in retail, basically. We considered importation starting from about 3 months shelf life, more or less. It really depends on the product and how much it is a fast mover.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
A good advantage of Dubai is that we can have a land transport, which we cannot do from Europe. In Europe, it's only ocean shipping. And I think I mean, we're not importing from Dubai yet, but I think the land transportation will make the import process faster.
Also, I'm going to follow up question with you if you're already here. Is there any opportunity for wheat flours? There are opportunities for wheat flours?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, we're currently buying it domestically, but we're very open to suggestions.
Cool. And by the way, Corinne, we were talking also about other products that you feel the categories that you feel that would be relevant. If you want to highlight them.
We're looking for vegetable oils, for enriched vegetable oils, but only in a super kosher, in a high kosher level, to offer it to a majority of customers, since it's a very mass market product.
I have a question. See, suppose the entry to getting it kosher certified is quite high, and therefore there is an investment that the companies have to do.
No, in dry foods, there's hardly any investments. You just need to clean the line between one production and the other.
Sure. So is there any opportunity beyond Israel if you actually get it kosher certified? What is the market opportunity?
The US.
The US.
Okay.
Big market. Europe. Some of Europe. Yeah, of course. Kosher is
the US is a giant kosher market.
US and Israel are the bigger kosher markets, but I will surprise most of you, and I will tell you that the UAE is also becoming a very important market, because we are working very closely with the hotels, with the caterings, with the different
HoReCa sector.
HoReCa sector, and different chains that are planning to open kosher sections inside their supermarkets. And of course, they will be much happier to buy locally. I would like to just say a few more words about the term that Corinne just said, which is called super kosher. There are basically, it's big, but basically there are two different categories of kosher. There are international kosher certifications, and they are super kosher certifications, which are mainly organizations that are the ultra-Orthodox communities inside Israel or inside the US. As Star K Kosher, as one of the leaders of the kosher market, we collaborate with most of the super kosher organizations, and we are able to help all the companies that are interested to be super kosher to become super kosher. One more topic that is very important, you asked now about the cost of becoming kosher. The cost of becoming kosher is very low. It's not high unless you're talking about very, very sensitive products like meat that have to have local slaughters or things like that. But if we're talking about the majority of the products, first of all, the raw materials have to be kosher, then the equipment has to be kosher. We visit a few times a year just to make sure that the kosher rules are maintained. Very similar to what halal certification is doing, and it shouldn't be very costly for the companies.
That is great. I'm gonna go Reuven, because Reuven has one of the biggest chocolate companies in Israel, both in distribution and also in import and stuff like that. There's a few questions about chocolate. First of all, like if it's, I'm gonna take it from you, Robert, but you can also answer whether it's a regular food or sensitive food. But also, what's the market size? Because I remember, Reuven, that Israel is one of the biggest chocolate consumers in the world in terms of per capita or whatever. They consume a lot of chocolate.
Zev, you have a mistake. Israel is not the biggest one in the world and not between the biggest one. That is a good thing because the potential is big. If we would be between the biggest one, we don't have any more potential. Now, I want to come back to several questions regarding kosher. I was in the supermarket there during my visit. And by the way, all the food that we have with our delegation, 73 people, was kosher. Also in the desert Sahara, when we went with the jeeps in the evening, we have everything kosher. And that means that the potential of kosher food in the Emirates is very big. I heard that there is a chance that there will be also some partners, Israeli partners, for this activity in the Emirates. Number one. Number two, you need badats for special kosher, what Corinne said before, in order to enter some chains in Israel that also Shupasan, Rami Levi and others have, or Osherad, you need a very, very special kosher certificate and not OU, OK, or any others. You need a special kosher, and that is from Khatam Sofer, Badat, as well as others. We are getting those kosher certificates, and the potential for this is big, because you must understand the high religious people, strong religious, how you want to call them, are about 12.5% of the Israeli population, and they have a lot of children. That means a regular family in Israel is about 2.9, 3.1, let's say 3 children. They have 8, 10, and 12. That means that they are growing much quicker than the regular population. And if you want to reach them, you need a very, very special kosher certificate. And that's another way of getting the certificate. I have a lot of experience with this, and our rabbi in the company have the experience and are doing it.